If you watched my Final Fantasy ranking video, you would have heard me mention how much I love towns and cities in video games. Exploring them is something I always look forward to, especially in RPGs. Not only are they places to recuperate after intense dungeon crawling, they're also cool ways to learn about the world and characters. So today, I wanted to talk about some of my favorite towns and cities in video games in an unordered list. I will, however, be limiting this list to only RPGs, as I could yap about this topic for hours. Also, this isn't a ranking, it's just some of my favorite ones. Starting off with a touch of nostalgia with Traverse Town from Kingdom Hearts. Now, Traverse Town has seen many forms over the years, having also appeared in Recoded and Dream Drop Distance. Chain of Memories too, but only on a technicality, so I'm not going to count that one. But its first appearance in the original Kingdom Hearts is the one I'm going with for this video. There's something so comforting about this town. As the first new world that Sora, and by extension you the player, get to experience, the cozy atmosphere works as a way to mitigate the intensity of the previous section, as well as serve as the perfect safe haven, with it being what is essentially the game's hub area. The small environmental details, the music, and even the setting of the world being trapped in perpetual night all add to that cozy vibe. It's one that I will always remember fondly. While I do love Traverse Town, I wouldn't list it as my favorite town in the series. That goes to one of my favorites in the entirety of gaming, being Twilight Town. Like Traverse Town, Twilight Town has had a few different appearances over the years, but its best still remains as its appearance in Kingdom Hearts 2. To get something out of the way, I love sunset. It's my favorite time of day, and it's in my dang username. So a town that is always basking in the glow of the setting sun is going to hit different for me. That, coupled with the music, especially in the Roxas intro section, really nails that fun but fleeting feeling of those late afternoons towards the end of summer vacation. Which is a feeling that I think is perfectly exemplified by that intro segment, which I know a lot of people don't like, but it's one of my absolute favorites in gaming. In terms of area design, I love the town's use of warm colors to complement the orange hue of the sky. It all blends so well together. I also love how the town feels a bit more open than Traverse Town. Now, while Twilight Town has had a lot of iconic locations like the station clock tower, the usual spot, and the mansion, my favorite is probably Sunset Hill. Honestly, the whole second section of the town in general, especially the hill and the train station platform, just really struck a chord with me. The grassy plains that seem to stretch endlessly beyond the town evoke a feeling of vastness and adventure that I used to feel as a kid peering out into the horizon. Lastly, I wanted to mention that I actually really like how the game bars entry into the town for large stretches of the game. It makes your visits there feel that much more memorable by comparison. Switching over to Kingdom Hearts' older cousin with the Final Fantasy series, and I'm honestly spoiled for choice with this one. There's so many great towns and cities throughout its legacy that it's hard to choose only a few. But I'm gonna do it anyway. We'll start with Midgar from Final Fantasy VII. Midgar is the pinnacle of industrial JRPG cities in my opinion. It is iconic, and for good reason. The premise of a city built on two levels with the affluent citizens living in relative prosperity on the plates above, and everyone else living in the slums underneath, with the people under the plates being figuratively and literally blocked from light by those that siphon wealth from them, is so cool. And it is one that perfectly introduces the themes of greed and environmental protection that are at the forefront of the game, especially in those early hours. The different communities that form from the separation of the sectors and the slums, like Wall Market, also just add to the intrigue. But honestly, one of my favorite aspects of Midgar is when you finally leave it behind. Going from being confined by walls and ceilings of steel to the wide open and diverse ecosystems of the world at large works to reframe that issue and the stakes at hand. You're not just fighting Shinra anymore, you're saving the world, and it's a lot larger than was first thought. On the flip side, we have one of the coziest towns in all of gaming, that being Fisherman's Horizon from Final Fantasy VIII. Now, I don't have much to say about this town in terms of its relevance to the story, as it's been a hot minute since I last played Final Fantasy VIII, but the town is one that has always stuck with me. The vibes here are unmatched. From the visuals and the music, it's one of those locations that perfectly exemplifies a place of rest. One more quick one from Final Fantasy that I want to mention is Altissia from Final Fantasy XV. I chose this one simply because it looks pretty. I love large water features and canals in video game cities, and this one is probably one of the best to do it visually. It's just cool. Plus, the vibes from the nighttime section and the Platinum demo are unmatched and have stuck with me to this day, despite them not being fully replicated in the game itself. Now, I can't talk about RPG towns without talking about trails. And this one was tough for me. With trails being the best in the business in terms of world building, each town and city in Liberl, Crossbell, Erebonia, and Calvert has its own personality and could easily earn its own placement on this list. But I've managed to narrow it down to my 3 favorites. Firstly is Heimdall, which is probably my favorite city in the entire series. The lore and visual design of the city is astounding. It's the largest city in Western Zemuria and serves as the capital of one of the continent's 2 largest superpowers. It's as vast as it is ancient. The Vermillion buildings make for a wonderful aesthetic, and both musical themes used for this city add to the feeling of vastness and wonder. Although I would say that I prefer the one from Cold Steel 1. I also think that the fact that we rarely get to explore the city, in comparison to others in the series, adds to the mystique. Plus the fact that we still haven't seen everything the city has to offer, despite it being the capital of the country that houses the longest arc in the series, adds even further to the idea that the city is just massive. The next city that I want to talk about is Crossbell City, which I honestly think is a highlight of the Crossbell arc. And that's not a knock at Zero and Azure, by the way. It's just meant to show how well Falcom managed to build and endear the player to the city within the time frame of just one game, let alone its other appearances. There is so much personality in Crossbell. From its introduction as a city of sin and corruption, to its melding of different cultures and peoples, due to its status as a major trade hub in Western Zemuria. It honestly has not been topped in that sense, and it makes the city seem like a character unto itself. Now technically the Crossbell arc takes place in the entire state, but the city that serves as its capital just steals the show. Getting to explore the city's districts in each chapter of both the Zero and Azure, and talk to the citizens allows for a connection to form between the player and the setting in a way that makes you feel the same desire to protect the city that the SSS does. It's just amazing. Finally, for Trails is another hub area with Trista, primarily from Trails of Cold Steel 1. Much like Crossbell, Trista serves as the hub area for the first Cold Steel game, and allows for the player to get connected to the town and the people in a way that makes you sympathize with the character's feelings on the town itself. However, for what it lacks in lore or story importance compared to Crossbell, it makes up for it in pure coziness. Getting to walk around the school at sunset after class, or exploring the town on a free day, all of it works as a perfect respite from the more intense moments of the game. It all works to make it feel like a truly safe haven for both the characters and the player. And avoiding spoilers, but I do think that it's that connection that helps to make a certain moment in Trails of Cold Steel 2 hit so much harder. It honestly feels like a home away from home for me. Moving from Trails to another JRPG series starting with the letter T, with Tales. Now, I think Tales has some of the most interesting locations in gaming in terms of pure visual design, and I could go on and on about its towns and cities for hours, but I'll just pick a few of my favorites based solely on visual design. Firstly is Fenmont from Tales of Xillia, and honestly, I just really like how this place looks. The lights paired with the night sky and the water adds to a cozy yet mysterious feeling. Plus, the fact that you only get to really go here at the beginning and towards the end of the game makes it feel even more special. Lastly, 2 towns that I like from Tales of Vesperia are Heimdallr and Dahngrest. Both have interesting premises with their barrier ballista. In Heimdallr, it's fused to this beautiful tree, which adds to the cozy starting town vibe, while Dahngrest's barrier ballista is broken, or at least the structure is. It allows them both to have certain visual quirks that also double as interesting world building. Plus, I really like how Dahngrest kind of looks like it's always set at late twilight. Lastly, on the JRPG side, I want to mention one of my comfort towns, with the Eternal City of Mak Anu from the .hack GU trilogy. The city is again backdropped by Perpetual Sunset, so bonus points there. But the layout and visual design really play into that MMO hub area feel. I love this town in a way that I can't properly describe. It's nostalgic for me in all the best ways. From the teleport area to the market to the port, it all blends in a way that makes it such a fun time to just run around it. Moving on from JRPGs to WRPGs, and we have probably the most nostalgia-based pick on the list for me, with the exception of Traverse Town, that being Whiterun from Skyrim. Now, I could have honestly picked any town or city from Skyrim, but Whiterun just has my heart. It's the first major city that you're likely to come across, and is designed to be the location for the first player housing you are likely to get. It's a home away from home in that sense. Plus, it's definitely designed to look like Rohan from the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and that's bonus points for me. It might not be the most visually stunning area at first glance, especially when compared to the likes of Solitude or Markarth, but something about seeing a city sitting in the distant plains and farmland surrounding it just feeds into that feeling of adventure that I think Skyrim just excels at. Next up, I want to talk about the Citadel from Mass Effect. This one might be cheating a bit because it's had 3 separate appearances that are visually distinct from each other, but I think it's the location that exemplifies the trilogy the best. From the beauty of the Presidium to the dinginess of the wards, it all works to make one of the most memorable sci-fi locations in gaming. Plus, it serves as the main location for one of, if not the greatest DLC in all of gaming, that being the Citadel DLC from Mass Effect 3. Last up on the list, I want to talk about an odd comfort pick for me, that being Night City from Cyberpunk 2077. Night City is so interesting to me. From the visual design of the various districts to the ambient sounds, it all just adds to make the city one of the most memorable in gaming. Each district feels unique, but none ever feel stitched on. Driving around Night City is honestly what I consider to be a form of gaming therapy to me, especially with the smoother driving controls of pre-2.0 Cyberpunk. I know this is a hot take, but I vastly prefer the driving in 1.6 to 2.0. But I mean, hey, I think virtually everything in 1.6 is better than in 2.0, so who's keeping count? The character of Night City as a location has this appeal in almost every dingy corner that just makes me feel something for it. And finally leaving the place behind feels almost bittersweet to me. It's truly one of a kind. So there you have it. Those are just some of my favorite towns and cities in RPGs. I couldn't get to everything because this video would be hours long, but I was able to mention some of my top favorites. Please let me know some of your favorites in the comments down below. Thank you as always for watching.